everyone. I am going to go ahead and share my screen really quick because we have a short little presentation for you all. So let me get that shared and then we can be on our way. Just a little introduction from myself and who we are, but I'm Hannah Holloway. I'm the National Campus Recruiter for Lehigh Hansen. Just the purpose of this information session is to help everyone to learn more about early career opportunities with Lehigh Hansen. I have 3 panelists with me today that we will get to meet and hear from shortly that are just going to give you all some more information on their experiences of starting a career with Lehigh Hansen just after graduation and giving some advice for how to kickstart your career after graduation as well. So we have different early career opportunities with our company that allow our recent grads to get full exposure to a wide variety of jobs. So within our operations, we have a couple of different programs that you all may have seen on our website for management trainees or engineers in training as well. These are our 2 main programs that we place recent grads into so they can get as much exposure to our industry as possible. The difference in these programs is really just the business lines and the majors that we place into these roles. So just depending on if we're hiring for our aggregates business line, cement business line, things like that, it's going to differ. But we're actively starting to recruit for these roles just based on our openings and things that we have available. We have our roles posted on our site along with our Way Up site as well. But with Lehigh Hansen, we have been building our early careers program over the years, and we're just looking forward to bringing a new cohort of recent grads into our doors to learn and grow their career with Lehigh Hansen in the future. So, and then in regards to questions, if we have time at the end, we will be taking questions like Brandon said through the chat. But if not, you can email them to careers@lehighhansen.com, and I can put that in the chat here in just a short minute. And then we can go ahead, and if you have any questions at the end that we don't get to, please feel free to reach out and send us your questions. So to start off, I just want to go ahead and have you all meet our panelists, just learn more about who they are and what they do with Lehigh Hansen. But if you all, for our panelists, just go ahead and give a quick overview of, where you attended school, your major, what brought you to your major, current position, things like that. So Katie, I'll let you go ahead and get the ball rolling and start us off.
Hey, good afternoon. So my name's Katie Hutton. I went to Penn State. I studied mining engineering and I also minored in German. So I found mining engineering. I was mostly interested in engineering and earth sciences, and I found out about mining through an information session. What got me interested was just how broad of an industry is. There's mining all over the world. It's very well rounded. It touches many disciplines: mechanical, civil, electrical. So there's so many things that you can do within the industry. You can be a jack of all trades, or you can dive into a specialty. So that got me interested, and I studied German as well, just for the sake of learning another language. But at the career fair, Lehigh Hansen introduced me. They said that they're owned by Heidelberg Cement, which is in Heidelberg, Germany. So I just got to intern with our parent company in Germany, and then after that, I came on full time with Lehigh Hansen here in Texas. So I'm a project coordinator now in North Texas, but I've done projects all over North and South Texas, as well as Oklahoma. And I've been with Lehigh Hansen for 3 years now.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. Let's go ahead and move on. Joe, why don't you kind of give us an overview of who you are, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Hannah. I'm Joe, everybody. I'm a alum of the Colorado School of Mines, majored in mining engineering. I have been with Lehigh Hansen for just over 5 years now. I currently am in our finance department. Kind of weird. I'm an engineer, but I work in finance over our Southwest Aggregates division. So Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas. That's me.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Brandon.
All righty. So I'm Brandon. I went to Penn State for mining engineering, graduated in 2020. I've been with Hansen for probably about 8 months now, but I completed 2 internships, one in 2018, one in 2019. I work in the aggregates business line up in Pennsylvania. So, as a management trainee, I get to do all kinds of fun projects, from very big projects, very small projects, full plant redesigns to, truck design or, wheel wash designs, things of that nature. I got into this business because I like heavy equipment. I like working with metal and steel and bulk materials, and it kind of fits all those requirements that I was looking for. So that's pretty much why I ended up here.
Yeah, perfect, awesome. Let's go ahead and move on to our first question, so that way we can get the ball rolling with this. But so for our first question, describe your experience of joining Lehigh Hansen out of college, and give more information as to what your experience has looked like. And so since we have someone who is more closer to getting out of college, Brandon, why don't you go ahead and kind of give us the overview there and start this one off, since you're more of our recent grad here.
All right. So as I said, I did 2 internships with Hansen. After I completed those internships, I was kind of aware that I did a good job on those internships. I was asked to come aboard full time. So I started in January of this year due to the whole COVID pandemic. There was a little bit of delay, but once I started out of school there, I immediately got thrown into projects, handling all kinds of loose ends that they had going on that they didn't have the people to handle. So once I started to kind of dig into those projects, I realized, some of my limitations and, growth areas, and, my boss kind of helped me along as I went, and I started to grow, in my ability to handle larger and larger projects. And eventually I was working with teams working on, projects that are upwards of, $10 million. So as you go along in the management trainee program, you'll kind of realize those weaknesses, as I said, and the company, and specifically your superior will help you along to, determine where your weak points are and see how he can develop you as a professional. And then eventually you're able to handle these tasks, with some level of autonomy, without needing anybody.
Yeah, no. And I think that's something too with, kind of in that program as well. It's about, finding yourself and figuring out, what works for you and how you want to grow. But it's also about, just leaning on those around you who have that experience and, learning from that. All right. Katie, why don't you go ahead?
Sure. So I started in Houston as a trainee. In Houston, we have several sand and gravel mines. Some are dredges, some are trucks and excavators. And we also have several rail terminals where we rail in crushed limestone from our quarries throughout Texas. So I kind of traveled all around those operations, rotated through safety, environmental, quality control. At the operations, learned, how all the processes work, how we mine, how we maintain the plants. As well as managing the people. So I actually spent 3 months managing 2 of the rail terminals. So kind of went all over, and there was a lot of freedom for me to go where I wanted to do and learn what I wanted to do, and spend more or less time, whether or not I was interested or not. I learned what I needed to learn, how the business works, but also got to spend time on the things that I was more interested in. So over time, I started to have strengths and more of an interest in project management and engineering. So I got a little more of those tasks. And eventually I was moved up to North Texas to our Bridgeport quarry, which is the largest quarry that we have in North America, where I did a lot of the maintenance planning and scheduling to align with a large maintenance outage that I was planning. So during that time, I actually transitioned into my full-time role as a project coordinator. And it was just a great opportunity as a trainee to, kind of use that trainee card to ask to go anywhere and shadow anyone, to just learn everything that you wanted to do and find out what your strengths were.
Yeah. And it's something too that I feel like it speaks a lot that, we give a lot of opportunities to our trainees, and it's nice to just know that there's a lot of potential there and a lot of growth and learning opportunities too, just to be able to learn as much as you can. Yeah. Joe, go ahead.
My, I'll say onboarding experience with Lehigh Hansen was probably a little bit different than Katie and Brandon, just in that I came on board before we had the trainee program officially. So I think I was 1 year before we kicked it off. So I was thrown right into kind of a project engineer role. If I had to have one big takeaway that's influenced my career the most with Lehigh Hansen, it's that right out of school, the company gives you high expectations, but they support you the entire way. So I was within my first week sitting in meetings with the vice president, regional managers. Katie and Brandon probably had the same experience, and having that sort of exposure level and that mentorship is something that I don't think I could get anywhere else. I was expected to deliver and provide information for these meetings. Large capital projects, rail terminals, $20 million, where we're doing pre-feasibility studies. And it's just the amount of responsibility you're given right out of college. It's probably more than you think you can handle. However, it's the best learning and growing experience that I think you can ever have. What I wouldn't want is I wouldn't want a company to set me off to the wayside and say, yeah, that's our new trainee, and let him or her just follow you. That's not what we do. You aren't a follower, you aren't a shadow. You're a person, you're a contributor, you're someone who adds value to the team from day one. And we know that you'll trip and fall and stumble, and you'll pick up learning experiences along the way, but we're all here to support. So I have nothing but excellent things to say about my first days, months, weeks out of college joining the company.
Yeah. And I have to piggyback off that too. I always tell people it's not shadowing. It's not, you're not just going to follow someone around with a pen and paper and, write down what they're doing. You're getting your hands dirty. You're, getting into these different operations and things like that. So I think that's something that's just really neat, because not a lot of the time you don't get that. So
absolutely.
Yeah. All righty, cool. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next question. So that is going to be, what have you learned from the role and your experience overall? So Joe, I'll let you go ahead and take the reins on this one.
I think I've had multiple roles, and I think I'll expand on that a little later, but there's something I've taken away at every single one. One common theme that I've taken away in every single one of my roles is you're never done learning, and there's never a time where mentorship is not pivotal in your next step. So what I've learned along the way is just, keep those relationships. People value your time. They value you as a person, and it really will make the horizon just endless for you. So people is my biggest takeaway in every single role.
Katie, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you were saying. Lehigh Hansen, we give you a lot of responsibility, but also a lot of freedom to, find your own way to be successful. Some of the things that I've learned are, you don't need to have the most education or the most experience to add value. You just need to show up, pay attention, and ask questions. Sometimes, a fresh set of eyes is more valuable than the most experienced person in the room, just to challenge the way that we've always done things. The more people you have involved, the more diverse experiences, the more likely you are to come up with a more effective solution. So, teamwork and communication is the only way to do that. We can't operate in silos. We're on the same team. So, asking a lot of questions and getting involved with big teams is really important.
Yeah, there you go. Brandon, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the people side, as everybody said, is the most important part of the business. I like to say that, our business isn't really rocks, it's people. And that's almost every business. It's a large group of people working together to accomplish a cause or a goal. I think the other thing that my experience up in Pennsylvania here, that helped me along was learning the business case for all of our engineering projects. A lot of times in school, you learn how to design them, but you don't get to see the business case, the economic reason for doing such a project. And Hansen throughout the beginning, of my internships all the way to now has, helped me, be able to apply an economic perspective to the engineering side of things, which ultimately is how you run a business. And that has helped my career grow, exponentially.
Yeah. Yeah. And I liked how you said, our business is rocks, but it's really more about the people. I mean, that's true. And that wasn't, all of your answers too. It's all about the people. It's about, networking, getting connected, and being able to build from that too. So I couldn't agree more. Awesome. Next question, moving on. This one, what is your career growth, what has your career growth looked like, and how do you plan to continue your career growing in the future? So, Brandon, let's go ahead and start with you, since you just kind of gave that one.
All right. So as I said, I did 2 internships with Hansen. I did one would have been my sophomore year, and the other was my junior year. I actually did an internship before that too, just to get started early. But as I moved along through my internships and learned more and more about the engineering side of things and application and the business, I started to develop ability to come up with projects that nobody else had thought of yet. All of that kind of came together and helped me land a job here ultimately as a management trainee. And after I worked as management trainee for a while, I started to kind of grow past the role a little bit, help a little bit more with operations, more and more and more until, I was effectively acting as a foreman at different sites I would go to and an engineer, just because, I could do both of them. So people, like that part, handling meetings with vendors to keep maintenance going and anything along that line. And then ultimately now, today, I've accepted a role as an assistant plant manager moving forward. So, that's a big step, and as I go forward, I'll continue to develop my career and work with our guys more and more, get more and more experience in our operations, and just continue to move up and develop my career.
Of course. No, and you've had a kind of a long line, from internship and then moving into, the trainee position and now on to your next promotion, which is incredible. So that's a great kind of overview just of your experience and your growth. So thank you for that. Katie, why don't you go ahead?
Sure. Yeah, I think my growth has just mostly been projects of increasing responsibility. Started out with writing proposals and construction management for small projects like pumps, screens, truck scales, and eventually doing large maintenance shutdowns where we are replacing and retrofitting large pieces of equipment, major pieces of equipment, and planning the construction for those. Doing some greenfield feasibility studies. Now I'm doing a brand new sand plant that we're about to start constructing in Houston. And from here on out, there's several other new plants and new projects on the horizon. There's really no shortage of work to be done. I'm also in the process of getting my professional engineering license. So sticking close to project management engineering is great for that experience as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's incredible. And I feel like that's a personal accomplishment too, just being able to add that in there and continue your growth as, setting your goals and things like that. So, no, great. Joe, why don't you go ahead and give us your insight there?
I've kind of bounced around a bit in my career. I'd say it's probably a little more non-conventional compared to a typical engineer career path. As I mentioned before I started, I actually interned one summer with this company in 2015. Yeah, summer of 2015. I was fortunate enough to come on board as a project engineer doing project analyses, and shortly thereafter, I became a member of our digitalization team. So I was the North American rollout manager for a industrial Internet of Things IoT project, where we are really the mining industry is notorious for being behind on digitalization, but our company was really kind of on the forefront of it.
Mhm.
So I took that on for about a year. After that, a major project came open that needed a project manager. And wanting to get back onto my engineering side, I had actually done the pre-feasibility on this project. So I went to manage it, where we built a brand new processing plant, similar to the one that you can see in the background of this image. It was a $30 million CapEx project that I had the sole responsibility of delivering on time, on budget, with no safety incidents, keeping everyone safe and healthy. Once we built that plant, I was fortunate enough to be given the role of plant manager at that plant. So it's about a 2 million ton a year limestone quarry, where I had about 25 to 30 employees underneath me, depending on the time of the year, managing every aspect of the operation, the human side, operations, regulatory, environmental safety, health, every aspect of the operation. That was, I'll say, probably one of the most eye-opening experiences I had thus far, just into the inner workings of the business. My point earlier about people, I don't think came across how I intended it, but the importance of people to our company is just, it's number one. Number one, the safety. Number two, the health and just the stability of our employees is key. And having leadership that supports that is what we have and what we need to have in the future. COVID then hit, and I was tapped to come into our finance group. So it was kind of a little off timing, but everybody was kind of on, which way is this boat going to rock sort of thing back in March of 2020. So I joined our finance group, which is, I'll say, a role typically reserved for senior accountants. And it's been just all P&L and business related tasks. So I'd like to say that this role has taught me the most. I've been put most outside of my comfort zone. Being an engineer, I see things black and white with very little gray. Finances are confusing, but I've learned a lot, and it was part of my development path moving forward, to better understand the business as just as a whole. What does the balance sheet look like, the P&L? How do we run it? What levers do you pull when things are going awry? That's been a terrific experience that the company has provided me the opportunity. So, like I said, little weird, from projects to IT to operations management to finance. I've touched a little bit of it all in my 5 years.
Yeah, but it just shows, you can really go anywhere. You can really go outside of your comfort zone. I think that's something too that a lot of people sometimes are iffy about, moving into new sectors and things like that. And I think that's something that, just kind of goes to show that you can really do anything if you set your mind to it. So,
Absolutely.
But then also touching on your point, kind of having people who, obviously we want to keep everybody safe and keep everybody healthy. That's obviously our number one priority, just because, of the operations that we do go through and have, but, also having people that believe in you and that can see something in you and see that you're, have the potential to grow into something, like a plant manager and moving that way. I think that's something that's, it speaks worlds to just kind of who we bring on board and who we have managing our facilities and things like that. So, yeah. So final question, what advice would you give students who are wanting to join Lehigh Hansen after graduation and grow their career? So Katie, why don't you go ahead, give your insights here, and then we'll go on.
Yeah, so I'd say be up for anything and ask a lot of questions. I can't say that enough. There's no such thing as a dumb question, and I guarantee it's probably something that the people working at the site might not see it that way. So yeah, asking questions, learning how the plant runs, the better you understand, how our plants run, the more prepared you'll be to make decisions about how we manage it, which is what all of us do. So, you'll be the new person in the room with a lot to learn, but by asking questions and challenging them, then I think that is a really great perspective to contribute to.
Yeah, I can't hit home enough with that up for anything. Just because I know you guys get thrown into so many different things, you just never know. Every day brings something different. So being up for anything, I know is something that I use out on campus a lot, just because it really speaks worlds to what you can be doing in a day. So I completely agree. Brandon, why don't you go ahead?
So probably the two pieces of advice that I would give are have an open mind, and that kind of goes along with the be up for anything attitude. But the other one is try to consume as much information as you can that's given to you. Throughout your time at the company, you'll be presented with a very large quantity of information, through various different conversations, spreadsheets, all of it. And really trying to take your time and look through the information you've been given and consume it, process it, understand what it means. All of that information will allow you to grow your career and ultimately be more resourceful for the people around you. You'll be a better team player because you know more about the business. And I've found that to be an extremely useful kind of attitude to have as you continue to move forward in your career and at the company.
Yeah, of course. No, that's exactly on track with what I would say too.
The advice I'd give joining our company and furthering your career, number one, be coachable. It's okay not to know everything. Everyone has said it on here. It's okay to ask questions. The more you ask questions, the more you're afforded the shortcut to the answers, because questions asked, the answer you get is often a bad experience that someone else had. So skip the bad experience and get the answer. Second piece of advice I would get is it's good to stick to your role and what you know and what you are set out to do, but don't be afraid to branch out and ask questions about things that are outside of your scope of work. That's how you learn more about the business as a whole. I like to say our processes, our company it's not a straight line, it's a circle. And so if you have a straight line mentality, you're missing something on your peripheries. So be coachable and be a sponge would be my two pieces of advice. Soak it all up.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Thanks, everyone. So moving on, questions. I'll go ahead. Let me just grab this Q&A over here and just see what questions have been asked, and then we can see if you guys can answer some of them. We do have one question. It says, what qualities does the ideal candidate possess? So I would say, especially as a recruiter, I would definitely say that in regards to kind of qualities and things that we look for, it's just really what, they all just kind of spoke to. Someone who has an up for anything attitude, someone who, isn't afraid to get their hands into different projects, into our operations, someone who is just kind of willing to especially be a leader, have kind of a leadership mentality, someone who has enthusiasm and just isn't afraid to ask questions. I think that's something that's huge, just like they all said, having that, mindset where you're not going to know everything, but being able to ask those questions is something that's huge, and making sure that you're understanding the business through and through as well. So that is probably my answer to that one. I don't think there's anything else on here that we can answer, but I do want to thank everybody for joining us today, and just thank each of you for tuning in. I know that our panelists were eager to talk to you all, and I'm glad that they were able to give kind of some more information to help us and learn more just kind of about Lehigh Hansen and early career opportunities overall. But I do encourage each of you to feel free to reach out, connect with me, ask any questions. There is that careers@lehighhansen.com email. If you have any questions or want to send your resume or anything like that, I am more than happy to connect with you, connect with me on LinkedIn. I am more than happy to answer anything that you guys have. But thank you all again for joining and taking the time. And I look forward to connecting with you all soon.